What if I told you that right now, at this very moment, there are people walking among us that only some of us can see? What if the person sitting behind you on the bus, the stranger in line at the coffee shop, or the figure standing at the edge of your vision doesn't actually exist in everyone else's reality? Today, I'm going to share stories that will make you question whether the people around you are really there, or if some of us are seeing glitches in the matrix itself. Brian thought he was losing his mind when it first started. 3 months ago, he began noticing the same man everywhere he went. A middle-aged guy in a gray suit, always perfectly dressed, always perfectly still. At first, Brian assumed it was just coincidence. Cities are full of patterns, right? Same commute, same shops, same routine. But then the appearances became impossible to ignore. The man would be there when Brian grabbed his morning coffee, standing quietly in the corner, never ordering, never speaking. He'd appear at the bus stop, not waiting for any particular bus, just standing there with that slight smile and gentle nod whenever Brian looked his way. Most unsettling of all, he'd be in Brian's apartment building, sometimes in the lobby, sometimes just outside Brian's door when he came home from work. Brian started paying closer attention. The man never spoke to anyone, never pulled out a phone, never seemed to have any actual purpose beyond simply being there. And he was always wearing that exact same gray suit, never wrinkled, never different. When Brian tried to approach him, to ask if they'd met before or if he lived in the building, something strange would happen. The man would turn away at just the right moment, or Brian would be distracted by something else, and when he looked back, the man would be gone. That's when Brian decided to get proof. He started taking photos whenever he saw the man, but here's where things got really weird. In every single photo, the space where the man stood was empty. Security cameras at his office building showed Brian apparently having conversations with thin air. His girlfriend, Lisa, was there during several of these encounters and swore she saw no one. But Brian could see him perfectly, could describe every detail of his face, the way he held his hands, the polite nod he'd give before disappearing. The man felt as real as anyone else, but somehow existed only in Brian's reality. Sarah had a similar experience with what she calls her shadow passenger. For 6 months, she's been seeing the same elderly woman on her daily train commute. The woman sits 3 seats behind Sarah, always in the same spot, always wearing a faded blue dress. She never gets on or off the train at any station. She's just there when Sarah sits down, and gone when Sarah leaves. The elderly woman never speaks, but Sarah feels her presence intensely. Sometimes she'll catch the woman staring at her in the window's reflection, but when Sarah turns around to look directly, the woman appears to be gazing elsewhere. Other passengers walk right through the space where she sits, as if she's not there at all. Sarah tested this by asking fellow commuters about the woman. "The lady in the blue dress," she'd say, "do you know if she gets off at the next stop?" The responses were always the same: confused looks, questions about what lady, insistence that the seat Sarah was pointing to had been empty all morning. Yet Sarah sees her every single day, clear as anyone else on that train, more real in some ways because of how consistently she appears. Marcus discovered his glitch person in his own home, a little boy, maybe 7 years old, who shows up in Marcus's peripheral vision, usually in doorways or at the end of hallways. The child never faces Marcus directly, always seems to be leaving just as Marcus notices him. He's wearing what looks like a school uniform from decades ago, shorts and a button-up shirt that seems too formal for any modern kid. At first, Marcus assumed it was a neighbor's child who had somehow gotten into the building, but when he checked with building management, no families with young children lived there. He set up cameras to catch the boy, but they never showed anything. The boy appeared only to Marcus, and only when Marcus wasn't looking directly. The most disturbing part was the timing. The boy seemed to appear during moments of stress or right before something important happened in Marcus' life. Before Marcus got news of a job promotion, the boy appeared. Before Marcus's father called with news of his mother's illness, the boy was there. It was as if this child existed as some kind of early warning system that only Marcus could see. Jennifer's glitch person was more active than the others. A young woman in a red dress who didn't just observe, but seemed to be trying to communicate. The woman would appear in mirrors, always in the background of Jennifer's reflection, mouthing words that Jennifer couldn't hear. She'd point at things, gesture urgently, act as if she was trying to warn Jennifer about something important. The woman in red showed up in bathroom mirrors, store windows, even the black screen of Jennifer's phone when it was turned off. Always behind Jennifer's reflection, always trying to say something. Jennifer tried reading lips, tried standing still long enough to understand, but the woman would fade away whenever Jennifer focused too intently. Most unsettling was when Jennifer realized the woman appeared most often right before bad things happened. Before Jennifer's car broke down on the highway, the woman had been frantically pointing at Jennifer's reflection for 3 days. Before Jennifer's apartment was broken into, the woman had been appearing constantly, looking panicked and afraid. These people, these glitch beings, share certain characteristics that make their existence even more mysterious. They appear consistently to the same person, often for months or years. They seem aware of their observer but don't interact with anyone else. They're invisible to cameras most of the time, but not always. And most disturbingly, they often seem to know things about the future that their observer doesn't. David works as a security guard and has access to hundreds of hours of surveillance footage from his building. He's been seeing the same businessman for 8 months, always in the lobby between 3:15 and 3:18 p.m., always reading the same newspaper. When David reviews the footage from those exact times, sometimes the man is there, clear as day. Other times, the footage shows an empty lobby during those same minutes. The inconsistency is what bothers David most. If these glitch people were hallucinations, they wouldn't show up on camera at all. If they were real people, they'd always be visible to everyone. Instead, they seem to exist in some space between reality and imagination, visible sometimes, invisible others, real to some people and non-existent to the rest. What makes someone see these glitch people while others don't? Why do they appear? And what are they trying to tell us about the nature of reality itself? The people who experience these encounters aren't suffering from any mental health issues. They're office workers, students, parents, professionals who live completely normal lives except for these impossible visitors. They see these figures as clearly as they see anyone else, but they're the only ones who can. Perhaps most unsettling is what happens when people try to ignore their glitch person. Brian tried taking different routes, changing his schedule, avoiding the places where the gray suit man appeared. But the man started showing up in new locations, places Brian had never seen him before. It was as if the man was adapting, finding new ways to remain visible in Brian's life. Are these glimpses of people from parallel realities? Are they some kind of spiritual guides that only certain people can perceive? Or are they evidence that our reality isn't as solid as we think, and some people are sensitive enough to see the cracks? One thing is certain. For the people who see them, these glitch beings are absolutely real. They're part of their daily lives, constant reminders that the world might be far stranger than most of us realize. The question isn't whether these people exist. For those who see them, they undeniably do. The question is what their existence means, and why some of us have been chosen to witness what others cannot see. Have you ever seen someone that others couldn't? Have you encountered a person who seemed to exist only in your reality? Because after hearing these stories, you might start paying closer attention to the figures at the edge of your vision. The world might have more people in it than we think. We're just not all seeing the same ones. After sharing those first stories, something incredible happened. Hundreds of people reached out with their own experiences of seeing people who shouldn't exist. What we discovered is that Brian, Sarah, Marcus, and Jennifer weren't isolated cases. They were part of something much larger, much stranger, and much more widespread than anyone imagined. The most shocking revelation came from a family photo that changed everything we thought we knew about these glitch people. The Henderson family was celebrating their daughter's graduation when they noticed something impossible in their pictures. Standing behind them in every single photo was a man in a dark coat that none of them remembered being there. Mrs. Henderson was certain no stranger had joined their family gathering. They'd taken the photos in their backyard, just the four of them. Yet there he was, clear as day, standing slightly to the left behind her husband. When they looked at the digital images on the camera, he appeared in all 23 photos. But when they checked the preview screen immediately after taking each shot, the photos had shown only the family. Even more disturbing was what happened when they showed the photos to other family members. Some people could see the man clearly. Others insisted the space was empty, even when the family pointed directly at him in the image. The same photograph was showing different realities to different people. This pattern repeated itself across dozens of similar cases. Emma discovered it during her office Christmas party. The official company photographer took group shots of all 50 employees, but when the photos came back, there were 51 people in every image. An extra woman in a blue dress standing in the back row, smiling pleasantly at the camera. HR couldn't identify her. Security footage from that day showed no record of anyone in a blue dress entering or leaving the building. Yet she was there in every group photo, as real as anyone else. Some employees could see her immediately. Others had to have her pointed out and still couldn't make sense of what they were looking at. The most unsettling case came from a ride-sharing driver named Tom. He picked up a passenger downtown, a quiet woman who asked to go to the airport. They had a pleasant conversation during the 40-minute drive. She paid him in cash, thanked him for the ride, and walked into the terminal with her luggage. It was a completely normal trip except for one impossible detail. Security footage from his car showed Tom driving alone, talking to an empty back seat for the entire journey. Tom insisted he could see the passenger clearly, could describe her appearance, her voice, even remember their conversation about her business trip to Seattle. But the camera recorded only Tom responding to silence, occasionally glancing at his empty rearview mirror, accepting payment from no one. Traffic cameras at 3 different intersections during their drive showed the same thing. Tom's car with 1 occupant, not 2. Yet Tom's GPS showed the additional weight in the vehicle, and his payment app recorded the fare from an account that, when investigated, didn't exist. Children seem to be particularly sensitive to these glitch people, often seeing them more clearly than adults. 7-year-old Katie had been playing with her imaginary friend Rebecca for months. Katie's parents assumed it was normal childhood behavior until they reviewed security footage from their home system. The cameras clearly showed Katie playing catch with someone, having tea parties with 2 sets of cups, and even arguing with another child who appeared to be sitting right next to her. Rebecca wasn't imaginary. She was visible to the cameras and to Katie, but invisible to Katie's parents. On the footage, you could see Katie responding to someone, reacting to being touched or spoken to. But you could also see Rebecca herself, a girl about Katie's age in an old-fashioned dress, playing alongside Katie as naturally as any real child would. The most chilling part was when Katie's parents tried to interaction with Rebecca directly. They asked Katie to have Rebecca wave at them. On the security footage, you could see Rebecca waving enthusiastically at Katie's parents, who were staring directly at her but seeing nothing. Office buildings seem to be hotspots for glitch people sightings. Margaret works as a receptionist and has been seeing the same businessman for over a year. He arrives every day at 2:47 p.m., signs the visitor log, and takes the elevator to the 15th floor. Margaret greets him daily, he nods politely back, and she watches him disappear behind the elevator doors. The problem is that the visitor log shows no signatures during those times. The elevator records show no stops at the 15th floor during his daily visits. Security cameras show Margaret greeting empty air and staring at elevator doors that open and close with no passengers. Yet Margaret interacts with him as naturally as she would with any visitor, even mentioning him to her coworkers who insist she must be confused. What's most disturbing is the consistency. These glitch people maintain their patterns over months or years. Brian's man in the gray suit still appears at the same locations, at roughly the same times, wearing the same clothes. Sarah's elderly woman still sits in the same train seat every morning. Marcus's boy in the school uniform still appears in the same doorways. They're not random hallucinations or brief glimpses. They're persistent, detailed, interactive presences that exist in some people's reality, but not in others. And they seem to be aware of being observed, responding appropriately to their environment and the people who can see them. Dr. Amanda Foster, a psychiatrist who's been studying these cases, found something remarkable when she interviewed dozens of people who report seeing glitch people. They don't fit the profile for any known psychological condition. They're mentally healthy, functioning normally in all other aspects of their lives, and their descriptions of these encounters are remarkably consistent. More importantly, these people often see their glitch person at the same time, in the same location, even when they're complete strangers who've never met. Two different office workers reported seeing the same woman in red walking through their building's lobby every Tuesday at 11:30 a.m. They'd never spoken to each other, worked on different floors, but their descriptions of the woman were identical down to the specific way she carried her briefcase. Technology seems to respond inconsistently to these glitch people. Sometimes cameras capture them perfectly. Other times, the same camera shows nothing. EMF meters sometimes register unusual readings when glitch people are present, but not always. Audio recordings occasionally pick up voices or sounds that correspond to the glitch person's actions, but the quality is often distorted or unclear. What's emerging is a pattern that suggests these aren't hallucinations, mental health issues, or even traditional paranormal encounters. They appear to be genuine interactions with people who exist in a slightly different version of reality than most of us experience. Some individuals seem to have the ability to perceive these parallel inhabitants, while the majority of us remain completely unaware of their presence. The implications are staggering. If these accounts are accurate, it means our reality is populated by far more people than we realize. It suggests that multiple versions of reality might be overlapping, with most of us seeing only one layer while a few sensitive individuals can perceive others. Perhaps most unsettling is what this means for our understanding of existence itself. How many conversations are happening around us that we can't hear? How many people are walking through our spaces that we can't see? How many realities are functioning simultaneously in the same physical location? These glitch people seem to exist in the spaces between what we consider possible and impossible. They're real enough to have conversations with, to be photographed sometimes, to interact with physical objects, but they're also ephemeral enough to disappear when approached directly, to be invisible to most people, to exist only on the edge of perception. For those who see them, these encounters raise profound questions about the nature of reality, consciousness, and what it means to exist. Are we all living in the same world, or are there as many versions of reality as there are people to perceive them? The evidence suggests that some of us are witnessing proof that reality is far more complex than we've ever imagined. These glitch people might be the most honest glimpse we've ever gotten into the true nature of existence. Layered, multidimensional, and stranger than any of us dared to believe. The question isn't whether these people exist. For those who see them, they undeniably do. The question is what their existence reveals about the world we think we know, and why some of us have been chosen to see beyond the boundaries of ordinary reality. The next time you catch a glimpse of someone in your peripheral vision, the next time you feel like you're not alone when you should be, the next time something seems slightly off about the people around you, remember these stories. You might be seeing more of reality than you realize, and that might not be a gift. It might be a warning that the world has always been far stranger than most of us are prepared to handle. Have you seen them too? Because if these accounts are true, there are more people walking among us than we can count. We're just not all looking at the same ones.